Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, to my colleagues, and especially to my dear Professor Sir Ramil Dupa. Once again, good morning. I am Christopher Miguel, and today we will be talking about the one of the most crucial topic on trend and issues in social studies, which is Philippine environmental law with the theme strengthening environmental protection, a Philippine response to United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. So at the end of this lesson, pre-service teachers will be able to articulate purposes and goals of United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, also known as Earth Summit, identify and explain the purpose of several key Philippine environmental laws and policies, and ultimately describe effective ways on how to support the goals of the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. Before we delve into the UNCAD, also known as Earth Summit, let's try to understand the main contributing factor leading to that conference. So before 1992, there was a global environmental crisis between developed and developing nations with their economic and environmental priorities. Because developed nations, they prioritize environmental protection, which is it impacts those developing nations. And on the other hand, developing nations, they prioritize growth with their country. They accommodate factories and other firms, which is a contributing factor to environmental damage. And because of this, it results to the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, also known as Earth Summit, that was held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil in 1992, with over 178 countries participated. And the Philippines was represented by the late President Fidel V. Ramos. So this conference is a response to the global environmental crisis. Of that Earth Summit, various international treaties or agreements and framework had been imposed aiming to alleviate environmental crisis. It includes Agenda 21, Rio Declaration, Convention on Biological Diversity, and Framework Convention on Climate Change. First, let's talk about the Agenda 21. So Agenda 21 is a plan created during the Earth Summit in 1992 to help the world protect the environment and develop sustainability. So the 21 on that Agenda 21, it refers to the 21st century, showing its plan for the future. It aims to make sure people and the planet can thrive together using international cooperation and action plans at all levels. Next up, we have the Rio Declaration. So it is a set of 27 principles that guide countries in protecting the environment and achieving sustainable development. It emphasizes that humans have the right to a healthy environment and that nations must cooperate to address global environmental challenges. So the declaration also promotes the idea that economic growth and environmental protection are not in conflict, but rather must go hand in hand. As what I have said earlier, there are principles, but I only chose those key principles, at least 3. So first principle is human beings are the center of concerns for sustainable development. And we have principle number 7. It stated that states shall cooperate in a spirit of global partnership to conserve and protect or restore the health and integrity of the earth ecosystem. And principle number 15, in order to protect the environment, the precautionary approach shall be widely applied by states according to their capabilities. Therefore, Rio Declaration is a very crucial framework that guides nations to address environmental challenges in a way that there is collaboration and action. Now, let's proceed to our knowledge check. And now, let's proceed to the third outcome of UNCAD, which is the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So it is a global agreement signed in 1992 at the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. So its main goal is to reduce greenhouse gas emission to prevent dangerous climate change. So it is a framework for countries to work together to address these global issues. So under the UNFCCC, there are 2 subcategories, which is the Kyoto Protocol. So a Kyoto Protocol, it's extending the 1992 UNFCCC aim to reduce greenhouse gas emission from developed countries. So it established legally binding reduction targets. So this varied significantly. Like for example, the European Union aimed for an 8% reduction from 1990 level of their gas emission. And then the US, which didn't ratify, had a 7% target of the gas emission. And also we have Canada, Hungary, Japan, and Poland, which is 6%. We have also New Zealand, Russia, and Ukraine aimed for stabilization at 1990 level. We have also Norway up to a 1% increase, and Australia up to an 8% increase, and Iceland up to 10% increase. So all relative to 1990 levels. So developing countries were encouraged to take action but were not given specific target. So another subcategory or sub-agreement of UNFCCC is the Paris Agreement. So it is adopted in 2015, superseded the Kyoto Protocol. Its goal is to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius, preferably 1.5 degrees compared to pre-industrial level. Unlike Kyoto, it doesn't set specific targets for each country. Instead, countries submit nationally determined contribution or NDCs. So their own climate action plans updated every 5 years with expectation of increasing ambition over time. So in short, Kyoto Protocol used legally binding targets primarily for developed nations, while Paris relies on countries setting their own targets and progressively increasing their ambition. So both agreements, however, reflect the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, acknowledging the historical contribution of developed nations to climate change. And the last outcome of UNCED is the Convention on Biological Diversity. So it is a global treaty with three main goals. First is conserving biodiversity, second is using it sustainably, and equitably sharing the benefits derived from it. So this serves as a framework recognizes biodiversity's importance for human well-being and sustainable development. So CBD have two key supplementary agreements. So first is we have the Cartagena and the Nagoya Protocol. So the first is the Cartagena Protocol. So this protocol focuses on the safe transfer, handling, and use of living modified organisms, commonly known as genetically modified organisms or GMOs. So it emphasizes a precautionary approach requiring informed consent from importing countries and enabling them to prevent potential risks to biodiversity and human health. So next up is we have the Nagoya Protocol. So this protocol, it addresses the equitable sharing of benefits arising from the utilization of genetic resources. It mandates prior informed consent from countries providing genetic resources and establishes a framework for mutually agreed terms to ensure fair and equitable benefit sharing between users and providers. So this includes consideration of traditional knowledge associated with genetic resources. So in essence, the CBD along with the Cartagena Protocol and Nagoya Protocol provides a comprehensive international framework for the conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity, emphasizing both environmental protection and fair distribution of benefits. This time, we will be having our knowledge check. So basically, the main purpose of UNCED or the Earth Summit is to balance the environmental protection and economic growth. So it also fosters international cooperation, aiming to reduce the environmental problem through cooperation. And it also, additionally, it promotes sustainable solution to the environmental crisis that we are experiencing with. And here in the Philippines, in order for us to show support with the goal of United Nations Convention on Environment and Development, we've imposed several key laws and policies with the purpose to protect the environment, especially the Philippine environment, and also to alleviate or to reduce the impact of environmental crisis. So the following will be those key rules and policies. First law is RA 9003, also known as Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000. So this law focuses on proper solid waste management, aiming to reduce waste generation and protect the environment. So key provisions include waste segregation, such as separating waste into recyclable, biodegradable, and residual categories. It also promotes recycling and composting, prohibiting open dumping, encouraging sustainable waste management practices such as reduction, reuse, and recovery. So through this law, it's established the National Solid Waste Management Commission or NCWTS to oversight and imposing penalties for violation. The second law is RA 9275, also known as Philippine Clean Water Act of 2004. So this act protects the country's water resources from pollution. So key aspects includes setting water quality standards based on intended use, regulating pollutant discharge for industrial, wastewater, and agricultural runoff. It also promotes a multi-sectoral approach to water management, establishing a water quality management areas with specific plans and imposing penalties for violations. Another law is RA 8749, also known as Philippine Clean Air Act of 1999. So this law aims to achieve and maintain clean air quality. So key provisions includes establishing national air quality standards based on health and environment impacts. So it also sets emission limits for various resources such as vehicles, factories, and power plants. And also it promotes cleaner energy sources and sustainable transportation. Establish an air quality management system for monitoring and enforcement, and impose penalties for violations. Fourth one is the Climate Change Act of 2009, also known as RA 9729. It acknowledges the Philippine vulnerability to climate change and establishes a framework for adaptation and mitigation. Its purpose is to create a comprehensive strategy for addressing climate change through adaptation, mitigation, and disaster risk reduction, and to coordinate related plans and programs. So this includes establishing the Climate Change Commission as the primary policy-making body for climate change initiatives. And ultimately, we have the Wildlife Resources Conservation and Protection Act, also known as RA 9147. It aims to conserve and protect wildlife resources and their habitats. Its purpose is to prohibit hunting, killing, or trading of endangered species and their byproducts, and to promote sustainable use of wildlife resources. So this includes establishing a system of permits for the collection, possession, and transport and trade of wildlife resources. This time, we will be having our knowledge check. Here in Davao City, we have beautiful parks and mountains that contribute to a healthy environment. So our rich in biodiversity is evident in our abundant wildlife, including the iconic Philippine eagle. So a commitment to sustainability through ecotourism and sustainable practices complements its reputation as one of the Asia's cleanest city. So we are the top two of the Asia's cleanest city. So to maintain the Davao City's cleanliness, the Duterte's family in their leadership roles implemented several ordinances. So the following are the key ordinances that been imposed. First is Davao City Ecological Solid Waste Management Ordinance of 2009, or City Ordinance number 0361-10. So it aims to manage solid waste properly and promote sustainable waste management practices. It mandates proper waste segregation, requiring households and businesses to separate waste into recyclable, biodegradable, and residual categories. So the ordinance also promotes recycling and composting to reduce landfill waste and prohibits open dumping to prevent environmental pollution and health risks. Another is we have the Davao City Anti-Smoke Belching Ordinance. It reduces air pollution for which vehicle to improve air quality and public health. It sets emission standards for vehicle to limit pollutants, specifies acceptable pollutant level for different vehicle types, and enforce penalties for violation to ensure compliance. And lastly, we have the Davao City Anti-Aerial Spraying Ordinance, also known as Ordinance number 0309-07. It aimed to protect water sources and communities from pesticide contamination caused by aerial spraying in banana plantations by prohibiting this practice. However, it was declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court in 2009 as the city lacked the authority to regulate pesticide use. So a matter under the jurisdiction of the Fertilizer and Pesticides Authority, or also known as the FPA. So this ordinance demonstrates Davao City's commitment to environmental protection and sustainable development. As a social studies educator, we can significantly contribute to the goal of the United Nations Convention on Environment and Development by empowering students through various initiatives. So one key approach is fostering students-led initiatives. So by encouraging the formation of environmental clubs and supporting students organize projects like school cleanups, tree planting, and recycling programs. So through this way, we can empower students to take direct actions and cultivate a sense of responsibility for their environment. Another crucial strategy is implementing effective awareness campaign. So social studies provides the ideal context for students to research and understand local environmental issues such as plastic pollution or air quality concerns. So they can then design and execute campaigns using various media, including social media, posters, and presentation to educate their peers and the wider community. Finally, we have hands-on project approach. So it offers an invaluable opportunity for experiential learning. So establishing schools garden connects students to the food cycle and the importance of sustainable agriculture. So conducting water quality studies introducing scientific methodology and highlights the significance of clean water resources. So learning about the local ecosystem and their impact on the community fosters a sense of place and responsibility for environmental conservation. So by integrating these three approaches, students-led initiatives, awareness campaigns, and hands-on projects into our social studies curriculum, we can effectively support the United Nations Convention on Environment and Development goals of sustainable development. This time, we will be having our knowledge check. Reservist teachers will be able to articulate purposes and goals of United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, also known as Earth Summit, identify and explain the purpose of several key Philippine environmental laws and policies, and ultimately describe effective ways on how to support the goals of the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development.